Hello there, I'm Lloyd Evans. Welcome to Ramacrow. It's time for another voicemail. Today's voicemail is from Jess. Let's listen to what Jess has to say.
Hi Lloyd, my name is Jess and I'm an ex-Jehovah's Witness. I was born into a Jehovah's Witness family and raised in Surrey. Our circuit assemblies took place in Haysbridge, where I believe I actually met Ben Ford. Small world. I woke up around a year ago, and it's actually all thanks to you that this even happened. Your videos, your rebuttals, your research has helped me overcome some of the worst anxiety I've experienced in my 32 years. I wanted to touch on a subject that is still very raw, and it's very hurtful to relive. When you are part of an organisation such as this, you believe that everyone's families are the same behind closed doors, and you believe that everyone's experiences in the home are normal, so why would you question it? But I apologise in advance to anyone who is triggered by my message, and I hope you can find some solace from my story. My biological father hated his children. He was strongly encouraged to marry my mum after just a few months of courting, which is the norm in this congregation and organisation. He would abuse us in our home. He would find any excuse to lay a hand on us, and then use the Bible to explain why we deserved it. He used to physically abuse my mum, and she was constantly told by the elders that she needed to stay with her husband because he was the head of the house and he was in the right for dominating his family. They used to throw Genesis 3 verse 16 all the time. It must have seemed easier to just grab a scripture that best suited their argument, instead of issuing safety advice for her and us children. But looking back, they should have told her to speak to the local authorities immediately, but instead they just kept sending her back to him, and he was allowed to continue. The pivotal moment for me was when I watched my dad throw my little brother down the stairs because he was sick on the carpet. My mum was forbidden to go to him because he had to learn his lesson. He was 6. My mum told me in confidence that she was going to divorce my dad and get us all out. My mum tried her hardest to get helpers within the congregation who would let us 3 children sleep at their house while my mum got things in order. But she was reported to the elders by someone who was supposed to be family, and she was warned that if she left her husband, she would be disfellowshipped and her children would be shunned. But still, she left him, and we were all shunned for 7 years. I was 11 at the time, so from 11 to 18, I had no extended family around me, and none of my friends who I grew up with in the congregation spoke to me. We lived in a very small town, so I saw people from time to time, and they would cross the road, pretend to be talking on the phone, or blatantly turn around and walk in the other direction, all because my mum did what she should have been told from the very beginning: get out. But here I am, 32 years old, I have the most wonderful husband, and I have 2 beautiful children. And my message is simply this: for anyone who experienced domestic issues and were not given the correct guidance, it wasn't your fault. As a Jehovah's Witness, you are raised to be meek, gullible almost, because you are manipulated and brainwashed into not listening to your own intuition, and that could have catastrophic consequences. But one step at a time, you will be okay. Thank you, Lloyd, for everything, and of course you have my permission to broadcast my message. Take care.
Wow, what a message. Well, thank you so much for calling in with that. It's stomach churning, quite frankly, to contemplate what you've just disclosed, particularly the part about throwing a 6-year-old down the stairs for being sick on the carpet. I mean, I just visualize my own daughter, Jessica, who's 8, so It's not hard for me to think back to just a couple of years ago when she was 6. And, well, you wouldn't do it at any age. You just wouldn't do that. You wouldn't throw a child down the stairs for any reason, just period. But to do that because they've been sick in the wrong place, as though you have any control in these situations. All of us have been sick in places other than the bathroom. It's happened to everyone. It will have happened to him. And this was apparently something that your brother did wrong. And I can only imagine how heartbreaking it must have been for your mother to be prevented, because she was in a physically abusive relationship herself, to be prevented from going to give comfort to her son, who must have been so traumatized by, you always want to run to the aid of your child when they're experiencing any form of suffering, let alone something as traumatizing as being hurled down the stairs. You always want to run to them, and to be kind of held. I can't even imagine what must have been going through your mother's mind. But for what it's worth, I think that your mother was extremely brave and courageous for leaving your father irrespective of the consequences. I'm sure there are many women or many abused spouses, because it's not just women, of course, who stay in those situations for years or decades, irrespective of what it's doing to both them and their children, because they just can't envisage life outside of that abusive situation. And that's not to say that they are mishandling their situation or that they should know better. Of course, it's not as simple as that. But nonetheless, it still must be said that for your mother to get out of that situation, to go against what the elders were saying, and how despicable of them to keep putting her back in that situation, or trying to. For her to go against what her elders were telling her and think, you know what, the safety of me and my children comes first, even if it means we get shunned, even if it means that we get cut off from our social network, and I'm on my own. And it's not easy being a parent when you have a community around you who can help you, to have to do parenting on your own and without any form of support. And for your mother to know she was going into that situation, just tremendous bravery on her part. And I sense a lot of her strength in you, just in your voice, quite frankly. I think that her example has rubbed off on her children, or at least in your case. And I'm really grateful that you've called in. There was no question, and I don't invite voicemails where there is no question. I think the point of voicemails really should be for there to be some back and forth. But every now and then I will make an exception, and this is definitely an exception, because what you just said needed to be heard, and I'm sure will bring an awful lot of inspiration to many who are listening, some of whom may even be going through this right now. That's the tragedy, is when we're talking about domestic violence, which proliferates in an organization, that makes it difficult for abused spouses to move on. The tragedy is that this is happening right now. You know, literally as I'm talking, there's domestic violence going on in a Jehovah's Witness family somewhere. So if it's not the past experience of many who are listening, it will be the current experience. And that's really troubling. And that's why I think your message needs to be heard. And I feel privileged to be able to share it with my viewers. And I'm very, very grateful that you called in and left it. So thank you. That's all I have time for with this particular voicemail. Don't forget that if you would like to leave a voicemail, the thing to do is go to speakpipe.com/Cedars, remembering to indicate clearly if you don't want me to broadcast your message on this channel. But that's all we have time for. Thanks so much for watching.